what if we did this? We've always thought about doing it, but we never did it. What if we made this happen on the property for you? Or what if we left some money aside that's specifically made to make that work for you? Would it change it? Now, Matt, is it different than just having the conversation with them and going back and forth like we were talking about and having the actual verbal negotiation?
Welcome back, everyone, to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. As always, my name is Matt Bonelli. His name is Garrett Frey, and we are Life at 10 Tenths. If it is your first time listening to this podcast, welcome. We're so excited you're here. If you're listening on audio, we also have video on YouTube, so you can watch us have this conversation. You can also engage in the comments under there. If you go over there, please be sure to subscribe and like those videos. It helps us reach more people and also remind you when an episode comes out. And if you want to learn more about Life at 10 Tenths, you can go to our website, lifeat10tenths.com, or download our app and get into our community and experience all the great things that we have to offer, from little bits of bonus content to full-on group coaching and incredible workshops and other things that we do. Garrett, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Man, I'm excited where we're going to go today. Matt and I, we were talking about systems and tools that show up at different times in different markets. And I always laugh when, like, all of a sudden the buzz changes. Like, all of a sudden the buzz changes. And everyone's like, oh, we get to do this. And it's funny. It's like, there's a big chunk of the realtors out here that go like, I've never heard of this before. And there's a whole group going like, oh yeah, we used to do those. Like that's normal. Like that's a tool. It's been on our tool belt for a long time, but we just haven't had the marketplace to use it in. And there's a tool that is resurfacing right now. Where more and more people are talking about it. It was never something you would do, Matt, in the last handful of years, which is...
You didn't have to, I guess.
You didn't have, there was no reason to do it. But it's like coming up as a buzzword again. There's different training companies out there right now that are going, ooh, like, here, it's back. We should maybe be doing this, or maybe not. We're going to go down kind of an interesting path with this today, because I had this conversation come up of reverse offers. It came up about 3 times in one day here yesterday. I was like, my gosh. And usually there's these trends that show up and it's just like, yep, there's one call. Yep, there's another one. Yep, there's another one. And it was interesting. I started talking with you about it and you brought up a totally different perspective that I was like, oh, okay, I've never looked at a reverse offer from that light. And I think there's a lot of right ways to use it, wrong ways to use it. How maybe it's like proposed of like, here's what you should be doing with reverse offers. So dude, I'm excited to talk to you about this because I think in the very right moments, it can be amazing and it could be used very wrong also.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, up front, I just want to get some terminology out of the way because I think everybody who's listening is like, yes, I know what an offer is. I know what a reverse offer is, so to speak. And I just want you to recognize that like the term offer is like offering something, like, and technically sellers make the initial offer by putting a property on the market and offering it for sale.
Yep.
And typically the buyers write the first contract of sale, which we say is an offer because it's not obligated for the seller to sign it, but it is binding if the seller does sign it. So the buyer presents the first contract of sale as an offer, and then the reverse offer is the seller presenting that initial contract of sale. So, but when I think about the terminology, Garrett, this is where we got into the discussion. I was like, well, what if you actually thought about the term offer and thought of like, well, what are different ways that you can share new terms and conditions? Because ultimately people say, well, the negotiations don't start until an offer is presented, i.e. a contract of sale is written up and handed to one party to the negotiation. And I'd argue, Garrett, and I know you agree with me on this one, is like the negotiation starts as soon as the buyer and seller's agent actually have a conversation and there is a question that is asked. Because all that information is used to then craft what would go into that contract of sale that would be presented, right?
And I think the energy changes around this idea of the reverse offer, because as you were stating in an earlier conversation, is like all of a sudden these terms that are on this piece of paper are binding. If they decide they choose to sign it, like, oh, we the typical words are, we just bought a house. Like we just bought, like they hadn't technically bought it yet. That's not all the way through all the stuff, but that's the mental shift that a buyer and a seller go through of, we just sold our house. Like we just sold, like, well, sort of, but it's the emotional energy that changes, very different from a open negotiation of, so like, would your sellers even consider this? Would your buyers even consider this? Like if we could do these things, would they be more apt to be able to buy? Well, these conversations happen all the time. They happen when you have a really good showing and they're like, oh, my buyers love your house, but... And we have that like, well, what can we do to make something come together? The crazy thing about when you have that moment that it turns from if we sign this, we just bought a house. If we sign this, we just sold our house. This is where the power of this comes to be. But you brought up a really interesting piece as we were talking before, which I thought was fascinating. And we were talking about like, well, okay, so let's say we do craft, like we find this buyer, we decide to lean into this one for any reason. We're just like, I think this is the right one. We should write a reverse offer to. We craft this thing up. We send it over. What if it was found out? And this is where you got me all tweaked. What if the other buyers that were kind of circling around also were like, well, why did they get a special offer that we would have signed if we would have known that that was an option? We were just going off what the MLS said. Why are they getting special treatment over here? Like, made me step back for a second and go, in this world that we're in right now, could that all of a sudden create a situation? Matt, you got me thinking, man. I was like,
I know, and I hate that I bring that up because, like, personally, I'm just like, you should be able to kind of do what you want in those scenarios. And, but it does raise the question of like, oh, okay, if we are going, like when you start letting people know that, hey, we are going to adjust the price, things like that is insider information. And then does that basically create an insider trading scenario because when you look at just the news and like the portal wars and private exclusives versus public listings, like, is it just does this get down into the nuance of the details, or is it just that people need to know that a property is offered? Like, that's it. Like, it doesn't need to be the deal. People should just have the opportunity and like, hey, if they didn't come and have those conversations, too bad, so sad on them. Whatever that answer is. The other thing we need to throw in here too is, and we'll kind of break all this down and have a full-on conversation about this. But if you make a reverse offer and you write that contract of sale out there, you are also removing the opportunity for potentially removing the opportunity for a multiple offer scenario where you can also counter offer and drive price up. Like, you are setting a ceiling when that happens, because that is basically, if the seller's putting out the contract, they're saying, these are our best terms. So the seller, like, that's the best the seller's going to get. You're only going to kind of go down from there. And the seller needs to be comfortable with that and know that that is what's going on. Whereas when a buyer presents a contract, I mean, if you are a buyer, that's also the best the buyer is going to get. It's only going to get worse for them from there as you start negotiating. They're going to want more money or these things and all that kind of stuff. And so those things, you got to understand that when you're going into it and initiating a negotiation there, or I say continuing the negotiation by taking the formalized step of writing a contract of sale. So if you understand all that, then you can start to use these things to your advantage. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't think about when they look at a tool like a reverse offer. They're like, oh, cool, we can go initiate this negotiation. It'll be great. And then here's another question I have. I'm going to throw on the table, and then we can break all this down, Garrett. If you present a reverse offer and then someone comes and asks you, do you have any offers on the property? Do you? have an offer on the property?
I would say no. I mean, you're creating demand that's not there. Like you're really like creating a situation that does not exist.
Could you say, well, we have a contract out. It's not signed.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
I'm not saying people should use that as a strategy. There's nuance to all this stuff. And yes, please don't do that.
No, please
But
don't
it just
do it.
raises the question. And then there's just so many different things that come to this that when you get, and maybe I'm just way too operationally thinking about this and I'm thinking about logical steps and people just need to be like, Matt, cool off, like chill out, like stop, your brain's going to explode. But all right, let's come back to this, Garrett, and kind of break this down for everybody.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting, and this is where these reverse offers get thrown out into offices and into the industry, is that we have a lot of sellers right now that are going, okay, I'm have this home on the market. We've listed it. It's in the open market right now, and we're getting showings, but we're not getting any solid offers on this right now. Or maybe we're not getting any showings right now. Some people are having that. We've talked on the podcast, we've talked in group coaching about like, hey, so like pricing and how serious pricing is and how you really need to figure that out to bring in proper offers. But this idea of the reverse offer, Matt, you brought this up beforehand, and I think it's really good to talk about, is that it's a strategy I think managing brokers bring in when they're like, okay, I know something that I can give them that they can go do right now to feel like they're making an impact, to feel like they're doing something. And where I find a lot of agents go, oh, cool idea. And then they go to look at their clients and go, well, who's the right one that I do a reverse offer for? Is it
Right.
every showing I have that's like, oh, here, here, reverse offer. I did it. Like I'm doing something cool. Okay, reverse offer for you. Like, no, like don't ever do that. Don't ever use that as a strategy. But I think that there is a right nuance where you watch a buyer that is having a hard time seeing around the property that you own. You know, hey, you know what? If you really wanted a space for your dogs on this property and that's the thing that's holding you back right now is you're not quite sure how to make it work. Like, gosh, what if we did this? We've always thought about doing it, but we never did it. What if we made this happen on the property for you? Or what if we left some money aside that's specifically made to make that work for you? Would it change it? Now, Matt, is it different than just having the conversation with them and going back and forth like we were talking about and having the actual verbal negotiation? Or can you put it into something that it's one of those moments, as I said, of like, if we sign this, like we love the house and this solves that problem. And I think that's the only time a reverse offer should be crafted and put together is if you're specifically trying to solve a problem for the person that has the interest in the house, but can't see the solution around it, where you can be like, I'll make the solution. I understand what you're trying to do. I'll make the solution happen.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good scenario. And I think there is a psychology to it. By presenting this, the psychology of a buyer being handed a contract that has terms that they like, that's different than just, well, the seller said this, but then the buyer has to go write it and present it, and then the seller could reject it. Because how many people listening have had a conversation with a listing agent where they're like, yeah, the seller probably would accept something like that. You write it up, and they counter it. They reject it. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought you said this was good.
Let me use this as an example. So the last house that I owned, I did not realize it before I bought it. I am deathly allergic to live oaks. Like,
are you really like in the presence of them or touching them?
The pollen that comes off of them. I am. You might as well. My eyes swell up. My everything. My senses go away. I can't think straight. Like everything's a mess. And it's always just, it's allergy season around here. But the house that we bought, we love the house, cute ranch style house. And I did not realize I was allergic till I'm riding my riding lawnmower in the backyard. And I'm underneath these huge canopy of live oaks that are just beautiful. And they provide tons of shade. And all of a sudden I'm a mess. Like I am going, what is going on? Super allergic. Now, if I knew it now, and I found a house online that I loved. Sarah and I went out, and on the side of the property, the side of the house, is this massive live oak. We love this house, by the way. No way. Like, I will not live under a live oak ever again, not doing it. Now, if I called, or the listing agent called my buyer's agent and go, they love the house. Unfortunately, my client is allergic to that damn tree that you have on the side over there. I might look at that as like, it's a big tree. It's a huge tree. Live oaks are massive trees. But all of a sudden, if a reverse offer comes across going, we'll remove the damn tree. Like, we will make sure that thing is off the property by the day you guys move in. Where are we at? Now, is that something that we could put into a reverse offer, an official one that, like, as you said, Matt, like, it's signed and done when they put their name on it as it goes across as a reverse offer? Or is it a conversation? And this is where, like, what is the right thing? But for me, knowing that they're willing to take that tree out, knowing it's like, oh my gosh, that just opened up this thing on a totally different level for me. This is where I go back.
It adds a formal contingency into something that maybe as a buyer you're not thinking could be, particularly if you're here in Charleston. There's no way a live oak's getting removed.
Well, but I also wouldn't want to hurt their feelings of going like, oh, the house would be great if you took down that big beautiful tree. Like I don't want to ask them for that. I don't want to hurt their feelings of what their property is. Like, it just opens up that little door. Like, they're willing to do that. But again, as I'm sitting here saying it out loud, that can happen in a conversation that we're actually having a verbal conversation, but it is a little bit more, it's way more formal.
I think this becomes the challenge with reverse offers, because you have agency on both sides of this. And even just in that scenario, for that information to be shared to the listing agent, technically the buyer's agent needs to have your approval to share that information. Because as we continue to get more litigious in this industry, and in general, like, I hear stories of buyer's agent provided some feedback to the seller, came back around, the buyer wanted to buy the house, seller had a piece of information that they were able to use because of the feedback that was shared, and the buyer didn't know that was shared, found out that it was shared, wasn't even really a big deal, but the buyer sued the agent anyway, saying you had no right to share that information because we have confidentiality.
Successfully sued. Recently, that scenario just happened. I wish I had the talking points on that here, because that would be an interesting one to talk about. But like, that was agent thought they were working in the best interest of their client, having a conversation, overshared just a little bit, and wham.
Yeah, and these are so. To get, like, how much information do you need to be able to write a productive reverse offer? Everybody thinks it just has to do with price. And I don't think so, personally. I've never seen a reverse offer that is just like, hey, we're going to do this price reduction, but here's a reverse offer to you. I think there is some psychology there. And I think that it could open up a door for a conversation and can work. And maybe some of you have had it work. I've never had it work for me, because price is such a absolute term in these contracts that if I went to you, Garrett, and said, hey, the seller's willing to take this, and the buyer's excited about it, the buyer probably would be happy to write up a contract and submit it. It kind of just comes down to, like, sometimes the agents say, well, who wants to write the contract? Do you want us to write the contract? Because you kind of verbally have already agreed. That's what I see when it comes to the price stuff. A true reverse offer is more of a surprise to the buyer in terms of like, oh, here's some interesting stuff. Now, I do think there is a level of a reverse offer that maybe won't feel as grand, where buyer agent and seller agent are having an authorized conversation about terms and conditions, and it just happens to be the listing side that writes that contract. Technically, that's a reverse offer, but you've already talked about it. You've already negotiated it out, and it's expected. And this is, I mean, arguably a rejection of an offer and a counter offer is a reverse offer from a logistic point of view, right? It's, I see your offer, I say no, and I return this as a counter or reversed offer. So again, I get into the nuance of the logistics and the terminology. So Garrett, I think what's really interesting here, because when you get into this, well, what information do we have and do we need to know? And this is where we talk about and we coach our buyer's agents, like ask questions, because the listing agent might share something about the seller, things that you would want to know that can help you craft a really great offer to get accepted. Do that the other way. This is where listing agents can ask a lot. And I know that it's hard to get buyer's agents to give feedback and all that kind of stuff. And I get it. And if you're not getting the feedback, their buyer's not really interested in the house. So who cares what their feedback is, quite honestly. At the same side, if you have somebody who's like, yeah, they do like the house, great. Tell me more about your buyers. Don't go into tell me about your buyers and the house. Tell me more about them. What is their ideal closing scenario? Because this is where on the reverse offer, I think you can get into the other terms and say, well, hey, maybe we can we were kind of thinking of having like a delayed closing, but maybe if they're willing to pay a price, we can be out of here in 2 weeks. Because up front, the sellers may not be thinking about that. They want the most comfortable path, but if you're on the market and is a buyer who is seemingly interested, maybe the seller is willing to adjust some things because, hey, we got a buyer here and this can work. And so as a listing agent, kind of doing the reverse of what we talk and coach buyer's agents to do, get the information so that you can then craft a scenario where a reverse offer actually has a lot of points that play right to that specific buyer versus a general public, like a price change.
So let's circle this back around then with like a reverse offer. One of the pieces that's a really important part of this is actually the agent to agent relationship and their communication that they've been able to have. So like, this is where I go back to, don't just willy nilly throw out reverse offers going like, oh, hopefully we'll get lucky here. It's not like we're chumming the waters going like, well, let's see what we got. This is getting very crafted. It's really upping your listening skills. It's upping your ability of asking questions before your listening skills. Go in that order. And but I have found the agents that put together a ton of transactions typically have really good realtor to realtor relationships. Some of them think it has other factors to do here, the size of their database. Oh yeah, there's all kinds of things that come in that allow people to do a lot of business. But a lot of times when the opportunities come in front of us, it can be very black and white. And there's some agents that put on a big, cloak of like, I'm not sharing too much information. Just it's the offer's what the offer. We're not talking about any more than that. Take it or leave it kind of stuff. But there are little nuances where you can open up that conversation. You can open up that relationship. All of a sudden, everybody lets their guard down a little bit. And the agents have a chance to have a real conversation. Now, there's a fine line there that you got to be very careful about, where it's like, what information am I allowed to share? What should I be sharing? What hurts my client's negotiation pieces? I think that there's a conversation to have with your clients of like, how much do you want me to negotiate for you? Like negotiate for you? How much do you trust me to put you into a situation that is going to allow you to be successful here? Or maybe open up opportunities or open up scenarios that maybe we can't see right now. I need to be able to talk on your behalf. I need to be able to share information. I think if you don't have that trust level, if you don't have that relationship, that's where things can get turned of like, you shared what? Wait, hold on a second. I wasn't comfortable with you sharing that. We need to have conversations with our clients, which then will allow us to have conversations with these other agents. That's what I think is one of the golden tools that we have as being a realtor. It's not just pushing paperwork. It's not just setting up inspections. It's not just, who's got the best pictures and things like that. Like these times, this marketplace right now, Matt, I look at the opportunity for us to truly negotiate and see if we can help people come together on terms and make a deal happen. Like this is where we earn our fee. This is where we earn what this whole business is all about and what we're doing here. Like this is the moment. Yeah. So I think it's a skill we need to get good at, but you've got to open up conversation. You've got to ask a lot of questions, clients and to other agents. Yeah. I think, you hit on something really important, and having that, whether this is done at a consultative time, I don't think it necessarily needs to be done during the consultation, the initial consultation of the listing or even with a buyer, but at some point in the process, having the conversation with, okay, we are going to enter negotiations, and what are the boundaries that we want to set as a team?
because particularly when you do the reverse offer, it's very important for those sellers to know is like when we make a reverse offer, if we decide to do this, we are setting an upper limit, right? We're setting out the best case scenario. And if it works, awesome. Like thumbs up. If it doesn't, we're going to get at second best, we'll get a counter offer, which won't be as good as the offer we set out. But now we are actively negotiating. The other thing I think that's important for sellers to know with this reverse offer, when you send it out, that means that buyer can sign and they're locked in. If there's other conversations that are happening, you have to go rescind an offer. Like you can't go and send, hey, you get an offer, you get an offer, you get an offer. It's the same thing as like a buyer sending an offer here, an offer there, an offer there. Now, I know different states have different rules and you have to all figure that out. But you can't just have all of these things sitting out there because what happens if 5 people sign? You know, now you're going to have a real big problem in your hands.
I've seen it happen where there's like 2 actually accepted offers on a property and you've never seen a listing agent panic more than when they're like, I don't know how I got myself in this situation. I'm like, I know how you got there. Like,
and this is where this is where like the offer direction typically, or the contract direction coming from the buyer makes it easier because obviously the seller can control, well, which one are we going to sign, right? But this does open up, Garrett, the other kind of path that we were talking about before recording is, well, okay, you have reverse offers, but what about curated marketing strategies, niche marketing strategies when you might have, because you had mentioned a conversation where it's like, a seller has, or a listing agent had like, well, we have multiple people interested, but nobody's writing. Okay, how do we get a message, a offer, not a contract, but an offer to that group of people that creates new interest to bring them back in and potentially compete against each other, right? Now, it may not be competing to like a bidding war or something like that, but maybe it drives an urgency that gets a buyer to write a contract. And this is where it gets into that nuance of, can you do that? Is that okay to change kind of your marketing terminology to a specific group or share it just with a few people? Because I think there is an opportunity before you make a price reduction, before you do something, to have this kind of special offer that goes out. Companies do it all the time. They look at their email engagement. They look at, how many people have bought their product in the past, and they say, Garrett, you've been a great customer for us. Here's a special offer just for you that the general public doesn't have. I think there's an opportunity to do something like that. Obviously, it depends on your MLS.
There's a lot of, I know there's people listening right now going, no, don't go anywhere near it. Don't do it. It's
like,
so
nope, you're crossing the line.
I'm curious if people are out there going, absolutely no. But you obviously can't be like, oh, this little selective group of people that have been interested in the property here over the last, month, I'm going to give them, not to all of them, but just to this little group inside there. Now you're in trouble. But I think if you've been collecting data, so you got every person that walked through the open house, you got everybody that did a showing, you've got all the agents. I think if you did something that went to the wide group of everybody that moved towards that house, energy moved towards that house, you're like, right, hey, here you go. This is something. We're going to send an email out. These are the terms. This is kind of where we're at with this. And then it opens up to the general public. Let's say there's a time frame of a week here that all of a sudden it's like,
you don't get this, they do. I think this is where, obviously you have to be very careful. This isn't like, oh, we're going to target this type of buyer with this offer. No. People have expressed interest in this property, so we're going to return to them with this thing. Going back to your initial scenario of readjusting something with the property, right? Yeah. So you could say, hey, we've had enough people come in and ask questions about what can we put in the back property? Can we do a pool, or can we do an addition or something like this? So what the seller is offering is for you guys who expressed interest in this, here's some information on that. This is what the seller is willing to do. They're willing to take, plans to the city for permitting or whatever. You come up with something, right? And obviously that something has to be comfortable with the seller where like anybody could take advantage of that offer. It's not like the seller saying only you can take advantage of that, but
Yes.
only you are going to know about it right now because you've expressed interest in learning about that. Same thing, I think, with a future price adjustment. I don't see a problem with sharing with somebody that, hey, we are going to be adjusting this price. You've already expressed interest, wanted to kind of give you a first shot. And people are probably going to be like, no, can't do that. Okay, fine. Whatever your rules are, I totally understand. My point in this is saying if you are not going to go one-to-one with somebody, I think it's reasonable to have the conversation and ask the question with yourself, is there a way, if we have multiple people who've expressed interest, to create something, even if it's not a change in terms of what's being offered online, but like, hey, why don't you guys come back? We're going to have a special, twilight open house or whatever for you guys. You're invited, right? An invite only, something that solves the question that those people who've seen the property already have collectively. I think that is an interesting opportunity that I think should be explored.
Well, and I think the way you just approach it, which I think is actually, I think is valid, of like, based off the month that we've been on the market, this is the number one thing that keeps coming up. People wish it had a pool. I think if you can address something specific like that and say, this is what my sellers are willing to do, just so you know, because you wouldn't really put it out on the MLS of like, here's what my clients are willing to do. They're willing to run the permits and things like that and do all that stuff.
Right.
But if you're just addressing that, that's where I think a curated marketing plan to that select group of people, and some of them are going to look at it and go like, I don't care. I didn't care there's a pool there at all. I actually didn't really care about the house. The house was whatever.
Yeah, I'm actually not interested in your house at all. But
there's some
stop,
that could
unsubscribe.
Some that could go, well, that's interesting. And all of a sudden it just brings a different view of what that house could be. It's like all of a sudden it's not the house without the pool. It's the house that potentially could have a pool. And we could design the pool. It's not somebody else's design. Like, we could make it maybe the way that we want it, knowing that it could be done. It's all approved. It gets there. There are some things around that I think could be really cool if you ask the right questions, if you're listening, if you're paying attention. And that's the next challenge, Matt, is we have to ask questions. We have to pay attention, because I know a lot of realtors, not the ones that I know personally, but I know a lot out there that, they're just waiting for the next person to come in and go, we love the house and here's a contract.
Yeah.
And they're really not doing much more than that. And so you got to listen.
It all comes down to that, right? Like, a strategy or a tactic isn't going to sell the house. One, if it's not deployed properly, and two, if it's not deployed with proper information. And so all of this, reverse offer, curated marketing strategies, all of these things come down to, are you listening to your seller? Are you having the conversation? And are you listening to the demand that's out there, whether directly from buyers who've seen the property or just the market at large? Because I have seen a lot of these, and I will say most of the time, reverse offer scenarios and things like that don't necessarily result in what everybody wanted. But it does create some good energy sometimes and allows some breath to happen so that we can get to a contract. So not good or bad, Garrett. I think it's just interesting. You got to know all the nuances and be prepared for how you want to do it.
Well, this episode we kind of kept to reverse offers, but we kind of looped all over the place. And I will say the one thing that came out of this for me, which I think is the difference of working with people that truly know you, like you, and trust you, relationship style sales, compared to working with strangers out here, is that one of the tools that you need to have in your tool belt is the ability to be able to negotiate for your clients. And I know for me, if I'm in a brand new marketplace buying a house and my agent that I've just met for the first time says, I'm here to negotiate for you, and how much am I willing to share? How much am I willing to talk about? I'm going to have a harder time going, oh yeah, you get free reign, compared to, Matt, if I was having you help me buy a house in Charleston and you were my agent on it, and you're like, hey, dude, how much can I negotiate for you to like really figure out what do we have here? What can we work with? What can we do? Like, how much trust do I have in this with you? And having it in writing that they have given me authorization to be able to go to bat for them and be able to negotiate. There's so much power in that. And I think it goes back to, this is the power of these relationship style businesses, these really trusted advisors that we truly should be for people that you just can't be for a stranger all the time. But you can for the people that trust you. So there's a lot of nuances here, a lot of pieces.
Yeah, I like it. But it was fun. It was fun. And hey, listen, if you guys are going to deploy one of these strategies or whatnot, like, come back and comment, either on YouTube, or if you download our app, you can comment on all our podcast episodes right inside our community. But we're curious what you guys think. What are you deploying? What are you seeing working? Because these are tools that you can have in your toolkit so that you can help your clients achieve their goals. And that's the way they should be deployed too. This isn't a tactic to like, this is how I'm going to get this house sold. It's like, is this going to help my client achieve their goal? Cool. Let's deploy it.
So with that being said, Matt, thank you for the discussion on this. Everybody who listened, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you want to check out more of what we've got going on, please go to our website, lifeat10tenths.com. You can grab tons of information of what we have to offer there. You can also easily go grab our app, and Matt and I have all kinds of content, tools, tricks going out. And we've talked a little bit about it, Matt, but if you haven't gone and checked out the 21-day accelerator, the cool part about what's there is you can jump into it and get caught back up. You can go through the exercises. It's free. It's free. So it's not like you're going, oh, but I'm going to buy something and I won't be able to get the full aspect of it. No, you can come back in right now. If you're a month behind us, you can come back in and just grab the sessions that you feel like you need that are going to get you where you want to go, and hopefully build the best second half of this year that you could ever have. So with that being said, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you tuning in as always, and we will see you on the next episode.
Take care, everybody.